Man oh man, the Despicable Me franchise still has so much life in it, especially with that ending, which seems to be teasing the biggest entry in the franchise to date. Oh yeah, my boy is back. But while I would love to talk about Vector non-stop for the entirety of this video, that isn't what this video is about. Well, not all of it at least. Today for you, I'm looking to the future and trying to work out exactly where the brain trust at Illumination will take this franchise moving forward. And to help with that, I've got my own ideas, questions and pictures for the next installment. Let's just say things are about to get very exciting. I'm Conifer SLUURP, and these are 5 pitches for Despicable Me 5. Number 5. What's up with Vector? The greatest cinematic moment of the year just happened in Despicable Me 4, and I'm still shaking from it. Vector, perhaps Illumination's best villain ever, has officially returned in a mainline film. This is a massive deal because people have kind of wanted to see this for, well, ages. Illumination did kind of tease with the idea of there being more to Vector's story when they released Mooned, the short film that was released alongside Migration. This short saw Vector attempting to leave the moon only to be eventually stranded on Mars. When I saw this film, I originally thought, okay, this is Illumination's way of shutting up the fandom and basically saying, he's stuck on Mars, stop asking us to use him again. But then bam! There he is flossing in Despicable Me 4. Illumination, I swear to God, if you edge me like this only not to do anything with him in Despicable Me 5, I will send you a very, very angry and strongly worded, but somewhat polite email to your complaints team. And you wouldn't like that, would you? So yeah, Despicable Me 5 needs to give us some answers. How did Vector escape Mars? How did he get back to Earth? And what caused him to be imprisoned upon getting back to Earth? And ultimately, what goals does Illumination's greatest villain have up his sleeve moving forward? Number 4. Another Minion movie. I think it might be nice to take a slight break from Despicable Me and head over to the Minions timeline for the next adventure in this series. Man, they are gonna make these movies forever, aren't they? So for the next one, we really need to go all out and make sure all the gentle minions swarm and come to see the third entry in the franchise. What if for the first time we did a little bit of time travel? I mean, there is a bunch of things you could do with a Minions movie with this concept, exploring different time periods like ancient Egypt, medieval Europe and the Wild West among them. Ultimately though, I would have a new villain in the Young Gru universe discover the ability of time travel. He gets Young Gru and the minions to test the device only to send them into the Despicable Me timeline. That means we can have Young Gru and Gru meeting. Come on, tell me you can't see that happening. Oh, and just as a final note, perhaps this time travel plot could explain why many of the prequel villains look so young in the modern timeline. Hey, it's just a thought. Number 3. Spotlight on the daughters. I've been hoping for this for a while now, but honestly at this point the next Despicable Me movie has to put more of a focus on Margo, Edith and Agnes. As these movies have progressed, they don't really have much to do, which is weird because they played such significant roles in the first movie, particularly helping Gru transform from a villain to a loving father. These sequels have often centered more around Gru's adventures, his relationship with Lucy, and of course the antics of the minions. This shift in focus is somewhat understandable given the franchise comedic tone and the broad appeal of the minions. I mean, they really are the not so secret sauce to this. However, it does mean that Margo, Edith and Agnes have had more limited character development and screen time compared to earlier films. There is definitely an opportunity to do more with them, to expand what they are capable of as characters. Heck, could one of them even become a villain? I think there is a lot to do with the daughters moving forward. Number 2. All of the villains. As I've touched on already in this video and in our breakdown of the greatest set of characters in cinematic history video, the reveal of all the villains together at the end of Despicable Me 4 was without a doubt the highlight of the movie for me. Mostly because it got me thinking, oh damn, they are teasing something big for the next installment in this franchise. Yeah, they're gonna do a Skibbity Toilet crossover. I love the internet. No, seriously, what if Despicable Me 5 is actually a movie with all of the villains, especially Scarlet and Vector, of course. Here is how I'd have it all laid out. A high-ranking member of the AVL turns rogue and recruits all of the villains in prison to his cause. Eventually he releases them from prison and Gru has to deal with them all. This would be Gru's Avengers Endgame, thinking he can do it by himself, but later realizing he needs help. On your left, characters from throughout the franchise all come back to help Gru. Also addressing the issue we just mentioned, we could have Margo, Edith and Agnes be given their own side story to deal with a villain and really help to develop them as characters for the first time in a while. This would be fun because it would also test Gru's loyalty to the AVL. Can he really trust the institution after such a high-ranking official did this? I'd certainly be interested to see how it all plays out. Number 1. All of the villains, but they're good. Okay, so at this point you can probably tell I've completely convinced myself that Despicable Me 5 will be all about villains. I mean, surely you can't just tease us like that and not follow through on it, right? So unlike the last pitch where the villains are villaining, what if this time around Gru starts a rehabilitation program in conjunction with the AVL? And tries to reform as many of his previous adversaries as possible. Eventually many of them return to normal society. Jean-Claude becomes a fisherman, Scarlet works at a supermarket, and Vector could work at a customer service call centre. You could do some pretty funny gags with all of this. When Gru and the reformed villains are all celebrating their newly reformed lives at an international summit sponsored by the AVL, a brand new villain hijacks proceedings. It would be important to make this new villain an absolute juggernaut, and the toughest foe Gru has ever gone up against. His evil plan is to launch a mind-controlled device into space that would allow him to control the entirety of Earth. Upon his introduction though, I would have him equipped with a smaller version of that device, a gun-style weapon that allows him to mind-control solo individuals. He uses this on the reformed villains to bring him on his side. The movie would then focus on Gru and the villains that didn't get zapped, Vector and Scarlet of course. They work together in this strange and contentious way to save the mind-controlled baddies and to stop this new villain once and for all. It would be so fun to see them all trying to not give in to their worst faults and trying not to fall back into their old villainous modes in order to save the day. Ultimately at the end we would have to have a scene where every single one of the villains teams up to beat down on the new baddie of Despicable Me 5. But for now that's our list. What did you think of our pitches for Despicable Me 5? Do you have your own idea for the future of the franchise? Well, what are you waiting for? Head down to that comment section down below and spill the beans. If you're new here, you're gonna want to hit that subscribe button because we are covering all the hottest movies this summer movie season. You might actually like this video that breaks down the ending of Despicable Me 4 in a little bit more detail. Here's a clip. What really steals the show here are the returning villains, so let's list them out. Okay, enough waiting around. He is back. Holy our boy Vector is back. That's right, rise up Minion fans,